From VOA, Learning English, this is the Health Report. A United Nations official says nearly 95% of African children living with AIDS do not have a way to get treatment for the disease. Michelle Sidibe is Executive Director of the Joint UN Program on HIV/AIDS. Researchers have shown that infection with HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus, leads to development of the disease AIDS. Mr. Sidibe spoke recently during a visit to Cameroon. There, people living with AIDS reported shortages of antiretroviral drugs. These are drugs that help control the HIV infection. The UN official said that more than 90% of the 3 million children infected with AIDS live in African countries south of the Sahara. The disease has had major social and economic effects on the area. 25 million people with AIDS live in sub-Saharan Africa. That represents about 70% of all cases. But people living with AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa often do not have access to medical treatment. Mr. Sidibe said that has to change. He said that only 6% of children living with AIDS in Africa have access to treatment. UNAIDS reported that only 24% of children worldwide needing antiretroviral treatment received it in 2013. That year, 190,000 children died of the disease. Mr. Sidibe said many people with AIDS die in silence. In many places in Africa, talking about the disease remains something that should not be discussed. Minyam John has been living with AIDS for 15 years. He said it is very difficult to get complete treatment for the disease because of a lack of medical supplies. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans.
For VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. When you are sick with a cold or the flu, you may have a runny nose. Why is it called a runny nose? It is because a substance called mucus flows and drips from it. Just hearing the word is enough to make some people uneasy. But science tells us mucus is our friend. New research finds there are health benefits from mucus and viruses. Our bodies can produce more than a liter of mucus every day. Jeremy Barr is a professor at San Diego State University. He says that mucus is where all of your good bacteria lives and grows. When you have a virus, it can cause many illnesses. Barr and his fellow researchers studied a virus called phage. He says this virus, when mixed with mucus cells in the body, can help protect against bacteria. He also says that phages are a special kind of virus. They only infect and kill bacteria. They do not infect humans or animals. His research shows that the phages stick to mucus layers all throughout your body. By staying there, they work to protect and control the bacteria that can live in your mucus layers. Mucus also helps protect your lungs from dust, bacteria, cigarette smoke, exhaust fumes, and other forms of pollution. Jeremy Barr says he hopes the research will help start new fields of phage research. They might even prevent food-related bacteria outbreaks like E. coli. So the next time you have a cold, remember your mucus, along with the phage virus, is hard at work. Together, they can block harmful bacteria and keep you healthy. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ana Mateo.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Bladder cancer is the 9th most common cancer in the world. An estimated 12 million new cases are found every year. Now, researchers say they have developed a scent device that can identify the disease. The device is called the odor reader. It has a sensor that finds chemicals in the gases released by urine. The device takes about 30 minutes to analyze the odors in a urine sample. The Institute of Biosensor Technology at the University of the West of England in Bristol developed the device. Chris Probert at the University of Liverpool was part of a team that tested it. Mr. Probert says the results are highly accurate. Researchers tested the odor reader on 98 urine samples. 24 were from patients known to have bladder cancer. 74 were from people who had bladder infections, but not bladder cancer. The device identified every one of the patients with bladder cancer. Mr. Probert says researchers in other labs are developing sniffing devices to diagnose stomach cancer, another common disease worldwide. An earlier study showed that dogs could be trained to detect bladder cancer based on the odor of urine. However, the dogs' noses were not nearly as reliable as the new device. Mr. Probert says the scent device could someday be used to monitor the health of workers in industries like rubber and insulation manufacturing. Those employees have a high risk of cancer. Bladder cancer is now found by looking for blood in the urine. Mr. Probert says researchers have not yet identified which gases in urine make the scent unique to bladder cancer. But he says they are working on that and on odor reading devices to diagnose other cancers. An article on the odor reader appeared in the journal PLOS ONE from the Public Library of Science. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Persutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. People around the world recently joined together to celebrate progress in fighting the disease AIDS. December 1st marked World AIDS Day. Now, a new device aims to make identification of AIDS easier. It could also lower the cost of testing in developing countries. The device is used to count a kind of disease-fighting white blood cell called CD4. The human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, attacks and destroys CD4 cells, making patients unable to fight infections. Doctors often suggest patients use antiretroviral medicines to help strengthen the body's natural defenses for fighting disease. A CD4 cell count can help doctors decide if the drug treatment is necessary or not. The count requires a blood sample and a laboratory equipped to study the cells. This can be difficult to do in some African countries where many people have AIDS. Rashid Bashir heads the bioengineering department at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He and his team developed the new device, which they call Lab on a Chip. It is a 3 centimeter by 4 centimeter cartridge with all the equipment and chemicals to do a CD4 cell count. He says the idea is to bring the laboratory to the patient. The device takes a drop of blood. It separates the white cells from the red cells. It then counts the CD4 cells. Mr. Bashir has a financial interest in a business called Doctari Diagnostics. It is working to market the Lab on a Chip and to develop a handheld device to read the results. Other researchers are also developing CD4 counters. Experts say it will be years before any of those devices is available to the public. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. An international team of researchers has developed a drug that could help in the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is a mental condition that can develop when someone experiences a disturbing event or series of events. People who suffer from it experience increased anxiety, depression, and may have problems with their memory. Scientists say the drug could be given to someone immediately after a trauma to prevent the development of PTSD. Raul Andero Gali is a researcher at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, who studies PTSD. He says it is the only mental disorder with a known trigger, such as a car accident or armed conflict. This means researchers have a better chance of finding a treatment. Dr. Gali and researchers at several other institutions have worked to find a gene linked to PTSD. They found a gene called OPRL1, which releases a protein receptor in the brain of some people under stress. Dr. Gali says this receptor can cause people to experience symptoms of PTSD. The researchers experimented on mice to develop a drug that blocks the receptor and reduces anxiety and fear. Dr. Gali says investigators tested the drug called SR8993 in mice trained to fear an electric shock whenever they heard a specific sound. The mice became stressed when they heard the sound. Dr. Gali says immediately after the sound and shocks, some of the mice were given SR8993. Others were given a placebo, an inactive substance. Dr. Ghali says the mice that got the drug showed less fear to the tone. He adds, however, that more work is needed to find out if it is effective in humans. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Persutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Three-dimensional technology, known as 3D, gives depth to objects that would otherwise appear two-dimensional or flat. 3D makes movies and video games look more realistic. And now, it could help save lives. For years, mammograms have played an important role in finding breast cancer. But these X-ray pictures of the human breast often miss dangerous lumps or tumors. And they also produce false positives. A false positive wrongly appears to show suspicious tissue. And that causes painful, unnecessary biopsies to examine that tissue. A new study shows that 3D technology could change the way doctors look for breast cancer. Many doctors, including cancer surgeon Nejar Galasorki, say standard mammography does not find enough cancerous tumors. She says looking for cancer in dense, thick breast tissue is very difficult. A few years ago, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved the use of 3D mammography. 3D technology found Jennifer Heff's tumor, although it was only 8 millimeters in size and could not be felt. Sarah Friedewald is a doctor at Lutheran General Hospital in the U.S. state of Illinois. She led a study to compare the results of 3D and 2D mammography from nearly 500,000 patients. Dr. Friedewald says they found more cancers using 3D mammograms, and they found more dangerous cancers. Dr. Friedewald says tumors that are difficult to see on a standard mammogram are easy to find in 3 dimensions. She expects 3D to replace the usual 2D mammograms in time. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carla Babb. From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. British scientists say they have developed a material that could help protect older adults from breaking bones when they fall. The new substance is called armor gel. Scientists say it is soft enough to be put in everyday clothing. As people get older, many develop the disease osteoporosis. This condition makes bones so weak that even a minor fall can cause a bone to break. In some cases, older adults can die from broken bones or from problems resulting from them. The Reuters news service reports that Britain's National Osteoporosis Society says more than 1,000 people die every month in Britain from hip fractures. Armor gel is a combination of 2 new materials. These substances quickly take in or absorb energy when they hit something. This protects whatever is behind the material. Researcher Daniel Plant works at Imperial College in London. He launched a company called Armorgel Limited. He says one of the materials in Armorgel moves with clothing, but becomes hard when something strikes it. Soon after the material hardens, it becomes soft again. Stephen Gambert works at the University of Maryland Medical Center. He helps older men and women who have suffered injuries. He told VOA that having the ability to turn soft quickly means Armorgel can be put into clothing. But Dr. Gambert notes that bone protectors, no matter how good, are not the best answer. He says the most important things are to stay healthy and keep bones from losing their mineral content. Daniel Plant thinks stores could begin selling clothing with Armorgel by 2016. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carla Babb.